I had my children on the floor. I was on my favourite blanket that my grandmother gave me on the floor like a cat.
And I realised in that moment the potential of what our bodies can really do as women.
Like I could feel his head, I could do my own internal, like, yeah, his head, I could feel it.
I was in tears, I was just in tears and overwhelmed with gratitude.
Hi and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast, the podcast that is bringing embodied birth wisdom from women from all over the world sharing their natural birth stories. Don't forget to subscribe and download so that you can always have access to these empowering and positive natural birth stories. Hi, my name is Anna and I am the Natural Birth Podcast host. I'm a former midwife who left the system and I'm now the proud founder of Sacred Birth International, a woman-owned company with a mission to revolutionize the birth world and bring focus to the sacred and the natural intelligence of the birth process. We do this by providing world-class education, courses, programs, and coaching to equip women with the knowledge and the tools to have conscious pregnancies, empowering and positive birth experiences, and the most nourishing start possible for themselves and their babies postpartum. We also educate and mentor aspiring birth workers into sacred space holders and physiological birth advocates in the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship, the Beyond a Doula training. If you'd like to work with me or take any of our courses, programs, or the mentorship, then head on over to sacredbirthinternational.com to find out more. Hi, Lindsey, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you?
Hi, Anna. I'm good. Thank you for having me this early morning. It's 6 a.m. where I am. Not sure what time it is where you are.
Right. Yes, the afternoon. So thank you for coming on this early morning to share your story. I love that you felt inspired to do so. So today, let's dive on back to becoming pregnant. And what were your thoughts around birthing when you became pregnant the first time?
It's so funny. I think about this often. I became so obsessed with pregnancy and birth and postpartum once I became pregnant. But before that, I didn't give two thoughts about it. You know, as a younger maiden, as they say, I never was into it. You know, I had a few friends that had babies before me, but I didn't really know to ask about their pregnancy or their birth,
Isn't that
which is
strange?
wild to me
Yeah.
because after I was obsessed and I still am. And it's just bizarre to me. So I knew I always wanted to have babies. And then my husband did too. And we met when we were teenagers, but we didn't get together until our 30s. And so we got married when I was 32 in the summer of the pandemic. And then we tried getting pregnant. I didn't get pregnant for 1 month. And so I sought out not a chiropractor. What are the needles?
Acupuncturist.
Acupuncturist. She was amazing. So I sought her out. And because 1 month I didn't get pregnant, and then I got pregnant the following month. But it was lovely just having those appointments anyways and just having some me time. And I think forcing my body to slow down and just kind of settle in. And so we got pregnant with our first kiddo in the fall of 2020. And I then started finding all the podcasts, and I have like 3 that's like the whole array of possibilities. So I have like the very like out there free birth, and then your podcast is right in the middle, like the natural birth. And then there's another one where it's just all kinds of births, anything you would see in a hospital. And I just wanted to fill my brain with everything just to be as prepared as possible. But I was listening to them all day long and just loving being pregnant. For me, You couldn't tell I was pregnant until over halfway through. I didn't have any really morning sickness or anything. It was a very healthy, easy, like so grateful for that pregnancy. And I want to tell people that are getting pregnant, enjoy that first pregnancy because you never get that again. You
Yeah.
know, then you have a toddler if you're pregnant, it's not the same. So that first pregnancy is such a magical time. You are chilling by yourself and you never get that again. It means if you're having other kids after that.
Yeah, it's
So
beautiful to
yeah,
kind of showcase that not every woman has a pregnancy with a lot of pregnancy symptoms as well. Like there's such
yeah,
a big range of what women can.
yes, I was so lucky,
Mm.
super lucky. So at that time, I was working remote, which was a blessing. You know, it was the pandemic. I was sent home so I could, you know, go on a walk anytime I wanted to with my dog and enjoy the sunshine or cook my own meals. You know, I wasn't having to like pack, you know, get up early to pack a lunch or like eat out. It was actually a very peaceful time because even though the pandemic was going on, I was home and I was forced to slow down. So it was actually very lovely for me. Just, you know, aside from not being able to see all my friends and all of that stuff in person. Um, so I interviewed a couple midwives and I eventually stumbled upon a birth center. And I thought that would be the best choice because we lived in a very small house. It was about 630 square feet. And also, my husband has been in the food industry, so he had left his job as a chef and started baking from our house. So in the States, it's called a cottage bakery, and you have to follow all of these laws. And so he was terrified of a home birth because he thought it could have potentially affect his bakery business in our house because it's so small. And he's like, you could poop on the floor. I'm like, I could. So we decided against a home birth and we went with the birth center, mostly because of, you know, just the fear and the unknowing around like the first birth. And then also my insurance covered the birth center very easily. And we didn't have like $10,000 for a midwife, which was kind of what I was seeing with kind of the trend. So we decided this birth center and we went to several appointments there and there's probably like 10 midwives on staff and you meet everybody. Everybody was great, but I'm a very agreeable person. So I pretty much like everybody. We did some classes online, which was kind of a bummer because they normally held them in person. And I'm a very extroverted person. And so it was harder to get into online, you know. You still met people and got to hear their stories, but it wasn't the same as in person. And so, yeah, that was also an election year in the States. So it was a very kind of tumultuous time, as it is again right now.
Yeah.
So my parents and I have differing views, you know, and so, you know, the election had happened. I haven't told my parents yet still. It was only like maybe 3 months in, but still, you know, you tell your parents kind of early. I didn't yet. And my mom, we were at a store and my mom was telling me that she was, you know, sad because of the results of the election. And I was like, well, you're going to have a grandbaby, so you can't be too sad. And so that was like a lovely way to just boost her back up. But then she was like, why did you wait so long to tell me? So, I just wanted to wait for the right time. And I don't know if that was it, but I thought it was kind of funny that it boosted her morale. So parents were really excited. I would be her first, it'll be her first grandchild from her own child. I have a half brother that's not hers, and she has grandchildren from them. But yeah, so mom was really excited. Truly not much to note through that pregnancy, it was a very nice, easy pregnancy, and I'm really grateful for that. Oh, actually, after the anatomy scan, we didn't want to know the gender, but they were telling me that the baby's measuring big. And I
The anatomy
read a
scan,
lot of,
that is just such bullshit that only happens in America, truly. Like it's
I
just
know.
absolute bullshit.
And I think I had your voice in my head saying,
I love that.
I know, this is lovely. So your voice in my head, you're my wise woman in my corner. So you're saying, they're not always accurate. And I called them because they wanted me to go to the maternal fetal medicine and have another scan. But I knew that if I did that, they will probably try to convince me to do other stuff. So I called the birth center and I said, I don't really care to have this anatomy scan or another scan because I don't care how big my baby is. I'm still gonna have it vaginally if I can, and without medicine. So I'd rather not know how big the baby is. And they kind of thought me on it, and they, were like, "Let me let you speak to the manager," and I'm like, "Okay," and just held my ground. And so it took me a little bit, but they were like, "Okay, that's fine." And they're like, "You'll just have a big baby." Okay.
Or not.
Um,
Like, truly, at the anatomy scan, which we're talking around what, 18 to 20 weeks,
mhm,
it's not a good prediction at all. Like, that's ridiculous. And
no,
again, like, very rarely would a big baby be a problem. Like, you just, it's not about the weight. Like,
yeah,
actually, big baby's birth, great. Gravity works fine,
yeah,
And smaller babies have a hard time coming out, bigger baby has a hard time coming out, and the opposite, easy time, like it has nothing to do with that. Very rarely, if there's this like very rare diabetes condition or some kind of undiagnosed thing that just creates this huge baby, then we're talking, but that's like extremely rare. All this talk about big
mhm,
babies, not true at all.
yeah. Just a way to instill fear. So I knew that. Thank you. Um, so that was one thing in the pregnancy, and then the other things that I recall now, the gestational diabetes test. You have to drink the gross drink. You have to drink a bunch of sugar to test for your diabetes, which I came back negative. But in the test, they took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was really high because I was freaking out about the test. And I was like, I'm starting to see that everything that these people are saying is correct, and I don't trust you. So my trust issues start then. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we go along. I, of course, wait until last minute to have my baby shower. Basically, I don't ask for anything because we have such a small house. So that was kind of funny, but great because turns out you don't need a lot. You really don't need anything. Um, so the week after my baby shower, the labor starts, which is so fun. I'm at the pool. It's summer. And my first sign of labor is that I have to pee every 5 seconds. And I'm like, could this be like my water breaking or like leaking? Which I feel bad at the pool. I tried to stay out of the water. But so yeah, just like little mild cramps. I didn't think I was in labor yet, but mild cramps and just having to go to the bathroom all the time. And then we leave the pool and I start feeling some really hot sensations like at the top of my pelvis. Like it's expanding, maybe. It's hot, like it feels hot to touch, which is a wild kind of symptom I hadn't heard anybody say before. And I was like, this is strange. And then we get home and then the contractions start and they come on like very strong. We're at the house. I've got my two dogs. They're like following me around and a storm is literally brewing outside. So I'm kind of like standing outside swaying, just like looking up at the clouds that are like swirling. So I probably labored at our house from like 4 to 9:30 p.m. We had called the birth center probably around 6 and they're like, yeah, give it more time and then call us back. And we're like, okay. and I'm laboring. My water hasn't broken that I know of. And contractions are like getting closer and closer and stronger and stronger. And at this point in the labor, I'm realizing that the contractions are worse when my husband is around.
Mm.
Yeah. And so he was doing the hip squeezes, you know, pushing on the hips, and that like made it better. But it felt worse when he was around. Like if he would go away and I could just go inward, it was easier to breathe through and to just kind of experience it, rather than when he was there, I wasn't experiencing it. I was like a victim, kind of,
Mm.
and it was worse.
Right.
So,
Interesting.
but I didn't have that realization until later.
Mm.
So throughout this whole birth, I was like, squeeze my hips.
Mhm.
Where are you? So yeah, so we're laboring at the house. I'm like, it's a small house. We don't have a bathtub. So I'm just kind of like getting in the shower and letting water just run on my back. Amazing. And labor. The water therapy is amazing. So I'm in the dark, I'm in the shower. And I'm kind of getting into it again. And I'm like, call the midwives and tell them we need to come. So he calls again. It's probably like 8. And they're like, okay, it sounds like it might be time. Like, how about we meet there at 10? He's like, okay. So he's like, maybe just try to lay down a little bit, see if you can get a little rest. So I lay down and my mucus plug shoots out
Right.
like a gun. It
No
was
way.
pressure. It was pressure. And it scared me because I thought maybe it was my water. I thought I was gonna like leak all over the bed, but it wasn't. It was just the mucus plug, and it was like, pew.
I've
And I
never
was like,
heard that. That
oh.
is so fascinating. It shot out
It was
like a bullet.
it was terrifying.
Wow.
And I think maybe just like the positioning on my side just like loosened it enough. It's just like, I mean, it could have been like my water too, like bursting, but no liquid came out. So I'm wondering if maybe like I had a slow leak during the day, and like there was pressure that like popped something.
It would have been water then, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's
You
very.
would think, yeah. But it was terrifying. So I like ran to the bathroom and I realized it was my mucus plug. It was like there. Um, and then the contractions like got even more intense. And I just sat on the toilet and turned off the light as Matt is like packing up the car, getting the house ready for us to leave. And I have a second in the bathroom by myself where I'm like, I don't want to go.
Hmm.
I don't want to go. But I went because he had packed up everything. We had called them. We had made the plan. But that was my intuition being like, you're safe here in this dark bathroom at your house.
Yeah, like
And I imagine,
that is so natural, isn't it? Like that is the primal true instinct. Like that is what all animals do. Like we are also animals, right?
yes, yes. And that moment I look back on and I've journaled about
Mm.
is like when I ignored my intuition
Mm.
and we went, and I told myself like I'm never going to do that again,
Mm-mm.
because when I ignored it and we went, everything that I'm about to tell you happened. um, so yeah, so we drive to the birth center. It's 10 p.m. We get there. I have to like, like we're walking, we park in the parking garage, we walk in and I have to pause because the contractions are so strong. We get in there, they have to do a cervical check. And, I remember reading like they don't, you don't have to, you can decline. But for some reason, I think they've made it sound like they had to. And I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
was an 8.
Mm.
So, and they did a little test strip to check my water if it had really broken it, and it had, even though I don't recall when. So yeah, those two things might have slowed down my labor because that, or maybe the bath. They drew a bath. They were like, let's have a baby. You're 8 centimeters. Let's do it. They drew a bath. I got in, and then I kind of like went out of this world.
Mm.
Like my contractions they weren't painful anymore. And they might not have even have been contractions, but I'm just like, I recall being in the bathtub for like an hour or two. to the point where everybody was like tired of me being in there. Nothing was happening, but I was like enjoying it. But the contractions weren't like strong or painful or like, I don't remember them being as intense in the water. So I'm not sure if the water relaxed me, slowed me down. Maybe my body just needed rest. But I was in there for a while, and then they like got me out and like, let's try to do some stuff to get these contractions going again. And so we tried a few things that were kind of funny. My husband kind of described it as like a bad acid trip because I was like naked, like lunging, like doing weird things. And he was just kind of sitting there. And the women were just kind of like observing. It was a very bizarre time. So the lunging. And then there was a time where she put a little blanket thing under my belly, or a scarf rather, and it was shaking the apples. She was like shaking my belly. I was kind of trying to like do a little movement, and nothing was working. Nothing was bringing the contractions back. So definitely like stalled labor. And it goes late into the night. We tried so many things. I like went in the shower for a while, and they kept like bringing me out of where I would go to try something else. And so I think they were just getting very tired of me being there, maybe thinking
patient, yeah. And just that, I mean, it sounds like a very typical kind of more medical model of birth center.
Yeah.
And not trusting the woman and her own process, but thinking that the experts, aka the midwives, need to make things happen for you.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely felt like they were the expert. They were like running the show. And I was getting annoyed, but I pushed it down because I'm an agreeable person, or I was.
Right. Well, it's like so many women are, right?
And you're tired. You're tired, and you're just focusing, and it's your first birth. And so you're trying to like trust these women. I was trying to trust them. I was trying to allow them to like lead me. But it was getting to the point where I was noticing, like, you're pulling me out of where I'm naturally going. And you're starting to have this look on your face of like, you're tired of me being here. So that kind of starts creeping into my psyche, and contractions completely south. And so they're like, okay, maybe lay down and try to get a little rest. So I did so, and timing is bizarre when you're in labor. You don't know if it's 5 minutes or an hour. So I don't know how long I laid down for. But they came in with a little like handheld heart monitor.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like read his heartbeat. Sorry, I already gave away the gender. I didn't know the gender. Trying to read the baby's heart rate. And I noticed that they're having trouble throughout the night to work this little tiny machine. And so this little machine becomes an issue. They can't quite get a read on his heart rate, but they're only using this little thing that I feel like they're struggling with. Like they don't know, maybe it's a new device. I don't even know, but they can't figure it out. And so that becomes a point of focus. And they don't have one that they can like strap around the belly or anything. It's just that little handheld one. So we're in the early hours of the morning now. And they're kind of saying, well, if we can't get the heart rate, or if we can't get the contractions to start back up, we might need to consider a transfer. And I just like am kind of ignoring them, trying to rest like they told me to. So again, like nothing happens. It gets to be about 5 a.m. and they are like telling me that they need to transfer me. And I'm like, okay, like that's fine. Basically, the birth center is kind of like across the street from the hospital. So it's an easy transfer. But little did I know that when you transfer, you have to go in an ambulance. Yeah. So I'm totally capable of walking And honestly, I'm like, wouldn't walking probably help get my labor going? And they're like, it's protocol and we have to have you go in this
It's usually
stretcher.
protocol when you're more than 8 centimeters, but literally just across the street though. I mean, that's really silly. And absolutely, because also you're obviously at that time not having regular strong contractions. You had that kind of stall of labor happening, which it sounds like the change of scenery and the people contributed to somehow for your primal self, you didn't feel safe to birth. You didn't feel that safeness that you needed.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm over it. I'm over them. I'm like, maybe I'll have a better time at the hospital. Maybe I'll like the midwife there better. They're like, we'll transfer you to a midwife there. And I'm like, well, that's good. So I'm kind of just like annoyed at them now because there's like 3 or 4 paramedics in the hallway with a stretcher. And I don't know if that's what you guys call them there, but it's basically like, yeah, a board you get strapped to. So I'm like, I think I said out loud, this is ridiculous that this is your policy, but like, I'm not going to fight you on it and I'm not going to run out of here. I should have. Honestly, I wish I would have just walked out
Yeah,
and
because
just
no
made my
one's going
husband
to do
follow me.
anything. You wouldn't like the police wouldn't be after you. Oh my God, this stray pregnant laboring woman is walking out. She's not following policy. Like that will not happen. Like literally, they can't
No.
do anything. It sounds, their way of wording it though sounds like it's life and death and like it's law. It's
Mm-hmm.
not law. And like you're a sovereign human being. You can walk out of there. Of course you can. But I understand though that you just don't feel like you can when you have all these people around you telling you that this is kind of lay of the land of the law.
Yes, exactly. And I tell this to my friends too. And I became a doula later on, but like into my clients. It's very hard to make those strong personal decisions when you're in the middle of labor, especially if you've been laboring for hours. You just kind of are like, whatever, you know, like, okay. And you just kind of do whatever they do. So you have to keep that in mind when you decide to have a birth with other people leading the way.
Yes.
So I learned so much through this birth, and I'm actually pretty grateful for it because it did make me like a stronger person. But so I get on the stretcher. They literally strap my arm and my body down onto this thing and like roll me through the birth center and into the ambulance. My husband sits in the front seat, and I can hear on the radio of the ambulance they're talking about like dropping off some a man who was on drugs. And I'm like, are we going to be like meeting him? Are we going to be coming in at the same time? Like I'm laying on the stretcher. The contractions come back as I'm on the stretcher. I'm like, great. Okay, at least they're coming back. But I'm like listening, to just chaos. And I'm just like, what the actual F? Like, what is this? 5 a.m, we arrive across the street. It's a 5-minute ride, but it takes 20 minutes because they got to load me in and load me out. And I'm just like, this is so ridiculous. I'm like formulating a review that I would, leave for the birth center about this experience, but I never did. But it's like, this is what it would be. And so I get in, I meet the midwife. She's actually really lovely. And we go up to the room, and you can tell, I probably get settled in at about like 5:45, 6 a.m. So it's actually really close to the shift change. Everybody is so tired looking. And there's a student nurse in the room. And so they get me hooked up to an IV, which actually I think really helped me because I wasn't hydrating through the birth and I wasn't really eating very much. So I had definitely less energy than I should have.
And that can affect
And
your
that might,
process. Yeah, that can make you, because you're reserving energy, it takes a lot of energy to birth a baby. So that's why drinking and getting energy in any form is really important. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And I think I like kind of thought about that beforehand, but I didn't plan for that. in my mind. And so after this birth, I kind of compared it to like, some people compare it to a marathon, and
Yeah.
I've run a marathon. It is not a marathon. You can do a marathon in 4 to 6 hours.
True.
Birth is more like a 100-mile race.
Yeah.
Like overnight in the dark, you are running, and you have to feed yourself for 24 hours. It is not a marathon.
Mhm.
And so I didn't kind of think about that until after the fact. So yeah, so I definitely kind of perked up after I got the IV. So yeah, so kind of like wake up, and I'm like, okay. And they strap me to a monitor. And so they can see on the monitor that like contractions are happening that I'm not feeling. But I thought that was kind of weird. So like a few times at the hospital, I could feel like a contraction, but nothing was as strong as before when I was at home. Like I couldn't really feel them, which I found pretty weird. And the things that I recall in the wee morning hours is the student nurse, just sitting like below me, holding a towel to my like perineum or like my vagina for a long time. And I'm like, what is she doing? Like, I think I like wake up to kind of just like, why is she doing this? Why is she here? Is this what they do in this kind of like schooling? This is the experience. Like, this is just what they do. And, and I thought it was so weird. Um, and
Well,
like, I
that's,
remember,
well, I'll just say this because for anyone listening and for you, like when you push, so not before this, but when you push, in between pushing, there's evidence that a warm compress on the perineum can prevent tearing, right? So there's good evidence on that. But before that stage, because it sounds like you weren't in that phase, right? So yeah, that is curious. Maybe she just didn't know. Maybe she's so used to people being on epidurals and somehow thinking, because were you lying on your side or something? How did she get in there?
no,
Where were
I
you
was
in this?
literally like, I was literally laying on my back, kind of
Right.
like a little, not fully reclined, but like up a little bit,
Yeah.
and wasn't pushing, but she was just like down there. And I was just like, this is strange. But I didn't say anything. She was a very young girl, and everybody was looking very tired. But I just recall like that was very weird. And I don't know what purpose she was truly serving, unless she was just trying to like get a lay of the land of me, like anatomy. Like, I don't know. But yeah, so that happened. And then the midwife, there was another woman birthing like in a couple rooms down. So this one midwife was kind of going between my room and that person's room. And so she would come in, and she would kind of like look and check, and she would just say like, okay, how are you feeling? Like, not quite yet. And I'm like, yeah, not quite yet. And then she would go away for a while. And it got to be like towards like, I guess, time. Like, I didn't know it was time. I didn't feel any urge to push. Like, I had to be told that I was 10 centimeters and that I could then push. And I was like, okay. Um, I was trying to push, and they were telling me I was pushing wrong. So then they would kind of coach me how to push. They eventually gave me like this a bar, like a pushing bar. So it like went over my body on the bed, and I could hold on, and I could like push like that. And that kind of helped. But there was one moment where before the midwife even had put on her like scrubs, she was like kind of like digging into my vagina, like with her fingers, like feeling. And she said, "You have like very tight hips." And I'm a dancer. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't know what that means, but I just kind of was like, whatever. She's digging, 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 and water bursts out and sprays all over her face and body.
Oh.
And I kind of laugh because I'm like, that's what you get when you do that. I'm like, why would she probably does that all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I don't feel bad. I'm not sorry
I
that
love
that
that for
happened.
you.
And so, yeah, I'm just kind of like, well, maybe I'm closer now. Still couldn't really feel anything,
You couldn't
but
feel
they
anything.
eventually,
That's so interesting.
I know. I think I'm wondering if I'm just like, my psyche just made me like numb to everything.
Maybe. I mean, I have had women who actually don't feel contractions, but then feel the bearing down process, but actually, like even on Pitocin, didn't feel her contractions. So it's possible, but it's so
No,
rare.
it just like the contractions, just like I don't recall them feeling very strong at all, or like couldn't feel them at the hospital. And I don't even remember feeling them like as it was like time.
Mm.
Um, Maybe there was like a few, but they weren't like several like in a row.
Mhm.
So then I began pushing with the bar, and I probably pushed for like 20 or so minutes. Um, and definitely felt like the crowning, felt that. And I felt, but I basically, I had to rely on them telling me when and how to push,
Because you had a
which
monitor
was very,
on, you had the CTG on, so they could see when you got a contraction. Yeah.
yeah, but I thought that was so weird.
Yeah.
And it truly just felt like kind of sad because it felt like I was like disconnected from my body a little bit. Or maybe I was just like so tired. I don't remember, but like, I mean, I know I was tired. I remember that, but it was just strange. And so, I pushed for a while, not like too long. Luckily, I did not want to be one of those people that had to push for 3 hours. I knew that that would be very bad for me. um, but yeah, so he, it was a boy. He came out all in one, like his head, it was like crowning, 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 and then his whole body came out. So it wasn't like his head and then another contraction in his body. So that was wild. And like he like pooped as he came out. They like brought him to my chest. And my husband told me it was a boy, and I was so excited because I kind of knew it was a boy. But we had a name picked out that would be gender neutral. So his name is Lonnie. And everything went pretty well after that. I had my golden hour, which I had to kind of fight for. The lady kept coming back in and being like, okay, I need to do some tests. And I'm like, it's been 20 minutes. Like, I asked for at least an hour. I had to start getting kind of like very vocal with these people. They in the hospital, like they to go to like I was like, I know I need to empty my bladder. I know I need to do that. Oh, let me tell you about the placenta.
Mm.
Basically, that came out right after, very easily. The midwife gave a little tug and it just came out. And with the birth, I chose to encapsulate it. So I had my husband put it on ice, and oh well, we waited until the cord was white. Um, both of my cords were like super white right away. So I was kind of like, am I waiting long enough? I don't know, but I feel like I was. But like I was aware of that, letting it all empty. So my husband cut his cord. We put the placenta on ice, and then a doula came and picked it up and took it home to encapsulate it, and so that I could take capsules. I wanted to try that. So we did that, and then we're doing skin to skin, fighting the nurse that wants to take him and do tests. And so eventually she kind of does the little test, but my husband's there with him and it's right in the room. It's not a big deal. They didn't like take him away. And they get a weird reading on his blood sugar, and they have to prick his little heel for that.
Wait. Why would they take the blood sugar? You don't take blood sugars on normal babies. You don't.
And he was, it was 39 plus 3, so it wasn't anything weird. He was
What did he
6
weigh?
pounds 15 ounces.
Oh, that's small.
Six,
Like
yeah,
normal.
I
I
know.
mean, he wasn't a big baby. That's what I was trying to say.
Not a big baby. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, and I didn't know this, and I was actually really excited to talk to you about this because the blood sugar test, his numbers were off. I can't remember if it was like high or low or what, but like obviously they were going to be off because I didn't eat for like a long time during the labor, you
Yeah,
know.
you shouldn't take blood sugars on, you shouldn't take blood sugars on babies.
Okay, lovely. They ended up doing it so many times to try to
Oh,
get the
no.
right number that his little foot, like it was horrible. And they made us stay at the hospital for 3 days because of this. And so it just became an issue because that affected, like, I felt like it was affecting like the breastfeeding, you know,
Yeah.
because every time they would come in, try to prick his foot, and he was just like screaming. It was horrible.
Imagine yourself, like it hurts, your heel. Imagine pricking your
Yeah,
heel several times,
I
and that's
know.
first like entry into this world. That is just, I hate that.
Well,
So,
yeah, I know. It was like, okay, like I went through all of this to like have a natural birth. Like we chose not to circumcise. Like I didn't want like anything to affect the breastfeeding and like the latch and all of these things. And then that, like the one thing that I didn't know was going to happen. Like,
yeah.
and that's something that I like tell my friends and my clients, like there is, you cannot do too much research. There will always be something that
Yes,
surprises you in that birth that you're like, the heck? Like I
exactly.
literally thought I learned everything. Like,
And
no, you
that
won't.
is,
It's
this
something like
is
that.
why you need like an expert on your side that you trust. Like you need either to have this independent midwife that you've vetted and and you like trust, who doesn't do these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you need to bring someone
Mm-hmm.
into the hospital or into these kind of medicalized birth centers that are not independent, to kind of know all these things for you because ultimately, like you can't you have to do a midwifery degree, you have to work as like you have to do like that's the knowledge base you need to be able to, as a
Yeah.
mama, be prepared for all eventualities, right? You
Yeah.
can't put that on yourself, but you can
Yeah.
find someone to be your kick-ass birth advocate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree 100%. And it's kind of, I'm kind of bummed that like I don't have a woman that I know in my circle in my life that is like that strong kick-ass woman that is like knows that. So I just like aspire to be that. Like I want to grow into that, like matriarch of my circle.
Mhm.
So gaining all the knowledge. But I'm really glad to hear you say that because nobody has ever said that to me, that you shouldn't check the blood pressure on a baby.
No,
And it,
no. And like even high risk babies, quote
or
unquote,
not the blood pressure, the blood sugar,
blood sugar.
sorry.
Yeah, I got you. I think everyone got you. Like you shouldn't do that. And I think even on high risk babies, which means like really, tiny babies and really, really big babies that also, so you can see on a baby that comes out, that's not just a big baby, but it's actually like put on a lot of extra fat on its shoulders. It's quite red and flustered, like there's signs of a baby that does have potentially going to have a big drop in their blood sugars. I still don't think that you should immediately at birth, because that's kind of the policy in like the first couple of hours, check that blood sugar. I think you should really get that baby to breastfeed, be skin to skin with mom, regulate naturally without
Mm-hmm.
disturbance, like really leaving well alone, letting physiology. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's kinder ways of checking blood sugars than pricking a heel as well. Anyways,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go on a tangent on that, but you know what I said, that this is why I started the Sacred Birth Worker mentorship, because I just don't think that these advocates, they're not there. It's very few
Mm-hmm.
trainings out there that truly prepare someone to be a good advocate and to truly know
Mm-hmm.
all the things that needs to be kind of, you need to know in this environment. Like you can't just, in my humble opinion, I don't think a normal doula training gives you enough to stand on to really be
Mm-hmm.
that person for women in our current crazy maternity system.
Yeah, you're so right. Um, and and I don't think that I could have really, I mean, I'm sure I could have declined that, but they would have, in the hospital, you have to be prepared for them to like call CPS on you if you decline that kind of stuff. And so it's just like,
You need to know your shit. You need to know
really,
without a
and be
doubt.
firm in it.
Yeah, it's hard to go on intuition in the hospital and not get clapped down by 10 people telling you that you are going to kill your baby. You
Yeah.
can, and you can leave,
Yeah.
but as you say, there might be repercussions because they don't take your intuition as a valid reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was probably the hardest part of the few days after birth. We were there for 3 days. My mom came to visit. That was really nice. And, um, I remember like thanking the nurses. There was one nurse who, she was like, everybody was so quiet and tired during my, right when I started the delivery. And she came in on shift, like energized, like she just had her coffee. She was like, let's do this. And I was like, yeah, you are what I need. I was pumped for her. But then she did the fundal massage on me afterwards,
Oh, she didn't.
the fundal massage. And she, like, I punched her hand away just out of instinct.
Yeah.
Because she pressed so hard on my stomach. And then I was like, just felt again, just like I trusted her. I welcomed her into my circle. And then I like felt abused by her afterwards. And so it was just like very roller coaster, very weird. And I can see why a woman would just kind of like be like, oh, that's normal. But like truly,
No.
the year after his birth, like it really takes like a year to really like, process your birth. It unfolds in layers, like things like you remember, things that stick with you that you're like, what was that? Why did that happen? Like, how could she do that? Like, does she do that like that to everybody? It just felt very hurtful and like aggressive.
Yeah.
And it's just like, from that moment was like, I will never do that again.
Yeah.
Nothing in my body would let me do that again.
Yeah. That fundal massage is such a routine in America. And let me tell you, it's not everywhere. Yeah, for sure, it's all over the world, but definitely not to the extent how it is there. And, so after birth, if you would have a massive hemorrhage, if you would just be like hosting blood, yes, welcome, do the fundal massage. I'd rather you do that, right, than you bleed. If you don't, no one should touch your tummy, right? Like if someone's worried, or maybe once, if I was the midwife, I would want to check very gently, like soft little hands, gently, just feeling very gently. Is it contracted or not? Is it contracted? No need for rubbing, no need for a massage. It's not a massage, it's roughly rubbing. If it's contracted, leave well alone. Like doing that forcefully, I believe, and I think that the stats in the US goes to show that that increases the hemorrhage risk.
Well, and before, I mean, I knew that the fundal massage was to get the uterus to start to contract. But when she did it to me, I could feel like blood pushing out of me. And then she goes, well, I saw a lot of blood, so I think you need the Pitocin. And I'm like, I feel fine. Like she pushed it so hard on me that I was like, what are the alternative options? What are my options? So I ended up taking a drug called Cytotec. And I don't even think I needed it, but I agreed to her to just get her out of my face. And it's just like, this is what you're getting when you're having a hospital birth, unless you're agreeable to all of it. Like if you don't want it, they might break you down. Like I'm a very strong person and they broke me down to the point where I took a drug that I probably didn't need because she just wanted me to have it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is what you might get and what you should know that you're getting if you're going to birth in a hospital. If you want to have a natural, like no to low drug experience, you'll probably get talked into some, just so you know.
Yeah, and that's why you should never go into a hospital birth without a kick-ass birth advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially first time. So, I left there. I left that experience obviously elated with my baby. He was adorable. He was the best. Breastfeeding was tricky, but it felt like it worked. It just was hard work. And I was actually in the middle of my Ina May's Guide to Breastfeeding because I was trying to read it before he came, but he came early. So I was like halfway through that book. But I definitely learned a lot from it. And the IBCLC in the hospital was great. I actually knew one of the lactation consultants on staff, so that was nice. And a lot of people would come in and try to give tips and pointers. But I think it's very hard for a first-time mom. Your nipples are not ready. It takes a long time for your nipples to be ready. And it hurts when they say it shouldn't hurt. I'm like, really though? Because my nipples have not had attention like this ever. It's gonna feel a little bit painful. It was just too much attention on a very sensitive spot. And then you have the hospital grade. They wanted me to triple feed. So try to breastfeed him and then pump and then feed him the pumped milk. I can't even remember what triple feeding is because I kind of said, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep trying to breastfeed him. And I'm just going to do my thing. Because I knew that, with the colostrum, the early days, it's very little.
Yeah.
And I also knew that they have neck fat that they can survive on. So I didn't want anybody to stress me out about it. I just said, okay, yeah. And then I would just do my own thing when they left the room.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to breastfeed on my own, trying to get the latch. He had his little lips tucked under. So I'd untuck his lips every time. But eventually we got it. Just took a long time and it took a lot of determination.
And trusting yourself, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up breastfeeding him until 2.5, almost 3 years old.
Beautiful.
So it was a lovely journey.
I love that. And during this time, you did become a doula.
Yeah. So he was born in June. And in the following December, I signed up for a doula training. It was just online and it was called the Matrona. So it's an elder midwife named Wapio. I love her vibe. She's a classic midwife, very just a lovely lady. I wish she was with my grandma. She was awesome. And what I loved about the training was it was very just pure on physiological birth and how the hormones happen, what exactly is happening in your body. And it was less how to be a doula. It was more of understanding what's happening in the body so that you can support, which, I knew that I wasn't going to be a full-time doula. When people take a yoga training and they say it's to deepen my practice, it was to deepen my practice. It wasn't to have a career,
right? But
I just obviously want to become that wise woman as I age. But I knew, I can't be a doula with a 6-month-old baby. And my husband, I tried.
Yeah.
I had 2 births that I did and had to find care overnight. So my husband, in this time, we're opening a bakery and he's baking all night. And so it's he can't really watch the baby because he's working. He starts baking at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a crazy time. But I do the training and my first client, she's a nurse. It's a hospital birth. And I'm totally out of my element because I was prepping for a physiological birth. But, I'm still able to support her, but I'm starting to realize I don't really want to work in hospital birth. It's just, I just don't like it. And I don't want to be judgmental. Like I'm a fire sign. I'm an oversharer. So I tend to come across like judgmental and harsh sometimes. And it's like I just don't want to even put myself in a situation where I'm going to be like that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of decide like I kind of prefer like just the whole natural side of things. So my second birth is a friend, and she wants a natural birth, but it like was a really like a 3-day labor. It ended up in the hospital, and I ended up actually missing her birth because she got an epidural, took a nap, and then had the baby really quickly before she could call me back, which was great because I was like, finally, it was a long labor. But yeah, so like my doula is not a career, it's to deepen my practice, but it really prepared me for what happens next. We decide we want to have another baby. And we had opened our business. So we now have like a shop that we go to for our bakery, an actual brick and mortar. And we've been at this time, it's probably been open for about 6 months. So very stressful time. My husband's realizing that I'm not like the general manager of a restaurant that he wanted me to be. I don't have experience like that, but I'm like, yeah, I can do it. And he's like needing more from me. So we're like in a very tumultuous place, but we conceive another child. And that pregnancy feels good. I'm still nursing my son through it, but I have a miscarriage at 13 weeks. And this was last fall. So I'm part of like a Facebook group, and I had started like spotting. And so I like posted in there, I'm spotting, just kind of like wondering if anybody else, I know it can be normal. And I remember posting that and people saying like both sides, like, oh yeah, that's normal. I've spotted and the pregnancy was fine. And other people were like, yeah, I've spotted and it ended up being a loss. And so I'm just kind of like, okay, well, it could be either. It's okay either way. At this time, I'm dancing professionally, so I have a big show coming up. I go to rehearsal, but that day I like ate a hamburger. And sometimes when I eat meat, it like really messes up my stomach. So I'm like, this could either be like contractions for like a loss, or it could just be like hamburger belly. And I remember like just feeling really, really sick at rehearsal, just like not great. And then when I get home at about midnight, I have like a mini labor, which I'm like, I've never really looked into stories about miscarriage, and I don't recall hearing many or them sharing as much detail. But like, yeah, I have like a mini labor for like an hour, contractions, really close together, like very intense.
Yeah, it's
very
a labor.
intense.
It's a labor. It's an early labor, yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. And then it kind of actually, I got up and I took a poo and they stopped. So I was like, still kind of confused because I was like, well, like if it was hamburger belly, like I got rid of it. Anyways, I take a poo, and then I'm like, okay, I feel better. So I actually am able to sleep now. Like everything's done. I wake up in the morning. My husband had left for work. I'm there with my son, and I go to the bathroom, and I literally like, trigger warning for like a loss, but I like birthed the little fetus in my hand. Like it's there. And so I'm like, I'm able to like hold it.
Amazing.
But I guess it had just been like, just like out of the cervix, but like still in my body as I slept.
Yeah.
And I'm like so grateful for this because like I actually got to see, he was a boy, like I could see, his parts. It was actually very beautiful because I know how normal and common miscarriages are, right? It's just like your body, it's just not the right time. It's biology. It's totally natural. And so like I knew this and I was okay, but I was just so grateful to like get to like honor him and see him. It's really sweet.
Yeah, it's a little human. They're very tiny, but they have fingers and toes and yeah.
Yeah, it was really sweet. And I was able to like wrap him up in my son's socks and put him in a little box. And I went and like called my husband. And he left work early and we just like took him to this trail that we, before we were business owners, we ran a lot. And so it was a trail that we ran a lot. And we buried him like in this aspen grove. And it was just like so beautiful. And so natural. And so I just was kind of like grateful for that experience and grateful that I got to like see him and hold him. But then I was kind of like, okay, I don't have anybody to like reach out to about this. And I don't really want to go to a doctor's office. I feel fine. So I Googled a midwife in my area and I emailed her, was just like, I just had a miscarriage and I just need a little like advice on like how do I know that like I'm okay? And she said that like you just have to be sure that you pass the sac and the fetus and the placenta. And I was like, okay, so I knew I'd passed the fetus and the sac. So I'm like, okay, so I need to like be sure that I pass the placenta. And then once that happens, kind of watch the bleeding, but it'll be for a little while. And so I had dress rehearsal that night and I was kind of like debating on going because obviously super emotional. Obviously, like my body might need rest. But this was like a huge show. And I was like, it could help me. Like, I honestly am the type that being around my friends really like holds me tight. And I was like, I don't have to dance hard. The show isn't for a couple days, but this is just dress rehearsal. It might be nice to just go. So I ended up going and just like taking it easy. And honestly, like told my team, and they were so supportive. And like a little bit of movement, I think really helped me because I ended up doing like a move and like felt literally that little placenta come out. And I was like, that's really gross for like my friends around me. But like, I'm actually really grateful that I did this because I think a little bit of movement truly helped. And just being around my loved ones, like I just like appreciated it. So yeah, so after that, like just kind of like after birth, you just kind of bleed for like a week or two. And it was like a great, for a horrible experience, it was the best case scenario for me. I did not want to have like a medicalized miscarriage or like, I didn't want to have to put this kind of like private moment into anybody else's hands at this time,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it is something, and I really want people to know that it's up to you. You don't have to go to hospital. You can monitor it yourself, just like you said, like just making sure that, you don't bleed too much. And you'll feel that. You'll feel if you feel unwell or, you know, um, and then what you might want to look for is just like signs of infection. If you haven't passed everything, then that could happen that you continue to bleed or that you have, you get smelly discharge, just signs of infection, feeling that feverish in your body or whatever is a sign of infection, for example, right? And so you can wait
Yeah,
and see. Like today, we don't do that ever, right?
I
Wait and
know.
see. It's
Yeah.
always like we want to be prophylactic in all our actions, and it's just ending up
Mhm.
being this over medicalized society. Like you don't have to do that. You can wait and see if you do need medical
Mhm.
attention or not. And for some they will, but for most you actually don't. And the beauty is, of course, when passing your beautiful baby at home, you could do that ceremony, you could honor it, which
Mhm.
if you had done it in hospital, you would have maybe had to fight to get to hold and keep that baby because it's not
Mhm.
considered, you know, yeah, whatever, like a
Yeah. Who
real,
knows?
yeah,
Yeah.
a medical waste.
Yeah. So I am actually like really grateful for that experience just to be more wise, like to have lived it and to have experienced those emotions and just, yeah, even though it was really, really hard and it still is hard to think about it, it's just, a part of life and it happens and it's very common. Um, Literally most of my friends have had a similar situation. And so, you know, it was tough, but I'm glad it happened the way that it did.
Mm.
So, so also I was very stressed at that time in my life. Like my husband and I were not in a great place. There was a lot of like resentment on each side, and that goes to show like the first year of owning a business, it's hard. It is very hard. And I don't know, I don't think that's the only reason why, but very much could have contributed to it.
Mm.
But that kind of brought us closer together, and we knew that we still wanted to, have another baby. I guess I should say this too. With with the pregnancy, my second pregnancy, the miscarriage, I was wanting to do a wild pregnancy. So I hadn't ever, established care anywhere, or even, confirmed the pregnancy. And so we ended up getting pregnant again 2 months later, which I was kind of like, I still want to do a wild pregnancy, but I was also kind of like, this could be pregnancy or this could just be like my weird period post miscarriage. I didn't know. We went to Italy and I was feeling not great. So I was kind of assuming it was pregnancy. I was tired. I was nauseous. And so I didn't really like indulge on the lovely wines with the pasta, but it was still a lovely trip. And not once did I say like, oh, I shouldn't do a wild pregnancy because of how it ended last time. I still was like, no, I still want to just trust my body and feel this out. And so I never established care, and I never confirmed the pregnancy until my belly started showing, and I started feeling a baby in there, and obviously like didn't have a period for a while. And oddly enough, I would say it was probably in the spring, my milk dried up because I was still nursing my son. And I was kind of grateful because I wanted like a little tiny break between. But I found that interesting. Maybe it was just his time, but yeah, it dried up during that pregnancy. And so, yeah, he was like two and a half, a little over 2.5 years old. And so this pregnancy was feeling good. I'm working at the bakery. I'm eating a lot of lovely pastries and croissants. Fantastic. I'm unfortunately unable to do as much during this pregnancy because I have a little toddler I'm hanging out with. But I'm trying to stay as active as possible. Nothing really to note with the pregnancy. Nothing really crazy happened besides my milk drying up. I told myself, I actually really had to like talk to my husband, Matt, about this because I'm like, okay, so like I'm liking this wild pregnancy. How are you feeling? And he's like, I trust you. And I'm like, well, how do you feel about an unassisted birth? And he's like, well, I think I would prefer to have like a midwife or a doula there. And I'm like, okay, why? And he's like, well, if something were to happen, I don't want it to like be my fault. And I'm like, I feel that. I totally feel that. But like any emergency situation with them present, like we'll still probably just go to the hospital, if an emergency happens. And he's kind of like he's kind of getting on board, but it takes him a while. All of my friends are like, you're crazy. Why would you do that? And even my mom, my mom had me unassisted. So it was an accident. My brother was one. I just came super fast as the second child, and she just had me just on her bedroom floor. And so even my mom, when I told her I wanted to have an unassisted birth, and I don't think she fully understood because like probably in my 30th week, she was like, okay, so did you get everything aligned with your midwife? And I'm like, I don't have a midwife. She's like, what? She's like, why? She's like upset about it. And I just told her, like, I kind of just want to try to do this myself. Like, I trust myself. I want to just try. And I ended up giving her a book to read to calm her nerves because she was very scared. And I'm kind of like, you can be scared, but just like, don't talk to me about it. Read this book and then tell me how you feel. So she did that, and she kind of like came around. And I'm just kind of like, out of kind of like sheer determination to try to trust myself, and also like kind of a little bit of laziness. Like, I didn't want to go to a doctor. I didn't want to like reach out to anyone. Everything was very busy with work and with my kid. And it just, the pregnancy happened fast. Like, it just, everything was feeling great. And there wasn't a time where I just needed to reach out to anybody. But I did have that one midwife. She lived like probably 45 minutes away, but still we kind of kept in touch. So I did have like her as a kind of a backup, but truly my backup was we would go to the hospital if anything should have happened, which I knew would be scary because I didn't establish care beforehand.
Mm.
And I know in the States they can kind of give you grief about that. Like, if you haven't established care and you just show up at the hospital pregnant and ready to give birth, they're like, what? Who are you?
You're kind of flagged as an irresponsible parent, and social
Definitely
services does get involved.
So I think the hardest part for me was wrapping my mind around that. Like, if something should happen, am I okay to handle it, as this is my responsibility? I chose this. And there like a lot of just like mental conversations in my head. Like, I think I'm okay. I think I feel okay. I think things are okay. Like, not one time did I have the urge to establish care, whether that was irresponsible or not. I felt fine.
Yeah.
And so I trusted myself and I trusted my intuition. I joined a couple of Facebook groups where a lot of women are doing unassisted births and wild pregnancies. And I'm just kind of reading, whenever I'm like on there, of issues that have come up, or like why people are going to the hospital and what people are doing and what they're having at their house, what kind of herbs they're going to have, just to kind of prep. And I, I didn't check my blood pressure throughout my pregnancy, but I don't normally. So I'm just kind of treating this pregnancy like it's a normal day. It's a normal thing. I didn't really check. I checked my weight occasionally. Like, I don't have a scale, but whenever I went to my parents' house, I checked it. And, nothing too crazy happening. I was a little bit worried about gestational diabetes owning a bakery. So I told my friends, like, don't let me eat too much of this delicious pastries. But everything was okay. To prep for the birth, I really only had the one bottle of herbs I bought for my miscarriage, which is called like womb stringe. Their flow stopper kind of like helps with bleeding. But that was the one thing I got. I bought some herbs for a medicine bath. I didn't buy a birth pool because I just like have heard stories where it didn't even get filled up in time, or like the temperature is like hard to get right. So I didn't even do that.
So I go home from my chores and it's getting later into the evening and they're like coming on strong. There's a pattern, but I still just think it's cramps. I'm in complete denial. I would say about 7, we have dinner, and I'm kind of like eating all day just because like we just got groceries. So I'm like setting myself up nicely, but I don't even realize it. We have dinner. My husband's mom comes to visit. She takes a picture of me. It's like the last pregnant picture. It's awesome. She leaves. We go downstairs to watch Austin Powers because I'm like, I need a funny movie just to kind of laugh. And I'm like folding laundry. And at that point, I like have to I'm like, okay, this feels like something for sure. It's like 8:00, folding laundry, and I have to get up and I actually have to like sway now. I'm like, okay. And I'm not even like in my head about things because I was in denial all day. I'm just feeling it now. And they're getting stronger. And I would say at about like 8:30, I feel something happen. am standing up, I'm swaying, and I feel like a drop has happened, and I'm like worried my water's about to break everywhere in the basement. So I'm like, I better go upstairs. But I'm trying to walk up the stairs and it's very tricky. So I'm pretty sure this baby has like dropped into a position that makes it like hard to walk, because I had to lean back, like hold onto the rail to go upstairs. It was very awkward. I don't say anything to anybody. My brother lives with us. My son's in his room in the basement. They're just hanging out, and my husband's watching TV. And I go upstairs and I don't say anything. I go into the bathroom and I'm going to labor on the toilet. I think I try to sit down. It's so uncomfortable. I get right back up. I'm like, nope. So I turn on the hot water, because I'm like, if the water's going to break, let's just do it in the tub. Turn on the hot water. I just get in there, and I'm in the bathroom upstairs by myself, lights off, door closed. And I'm like just breathing through some contractions. And then they really kick in. Crazy contractions that I've never experienced before, where I am now like feral, like, ah, and it just came on. Like there was probably 2 of those normal ones that I had experienced. And then it was just like intense. I'm roaring, and I'm like, I want to yell for Matt to come upstairs, but I'm worried that I don't want to like scare my son. He's down there too, but I don't want him to miss this, because I'm like, this is something. And I wanted him to start the medicine bath. So I'm like yelling his name, but I'm worried he's going to miss it. He pokes his head in. He's like, I heard you. Are you okay? I'm like, start the medicine bath. And basically it's just a giant pot that I'm boiling all of these herbs in that I'll eventually pour into the bath after the baby comes out. So I want him to start that, because it takes a long time. He gets the pot filled like this much before I yell for him again, because I felt the urge to push, and I'd never felt it before. And it was crazy. When you say it's like your vagina vomiting, that is accurate. And the first time I was like, whoa, I just experienced it, but I didn't like do anything with it. I just experienced it. And I'm like, Matt, come back. He comes back and like just makes it just in time. The FER, the fetal ejection response, happens again, and a head comes out, and he makes it in time. We both are like holding the head, and we're like, whoa. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I think the body's going to come out on the next contraction. And I have like maybe like 7 seconds to kind of breathe and just kind of recollect myself. And then sure enough, it happens again. And I like vagina vomit out the body, and it just like slithers out, and he's holding her. Oops, I revealed the gender again. He's holding the baby, and the cord is wrapped around the neck twice, but she's crying and she's pink, and she's like, her arms are out. She's like, ah. And so I just kind of unwrap, and I know I'm not scared of that. Like, that's okay. I just unwrap and I hold her to my chest, and I just kind of go down on my knees, and my husband and I are looking at each other like, what? That was insane. It was like from 8 p.m. to 8:54, she was born. Screaming, pink, healthy, beautiful, amazing. 3 of those, urges to push, and she came out beautifully. She has dark hair, which I was like, what? She looks like my husband. She immediately, like, I held her to my breast, and she immediately latched. It was amazing. We sat there for probably like 10 minutes until my legs started feeling like they were getting, like the circulation cut off. And so I handed her back to my husband, and then I told him I wanted to try to get the placenta out. So he brought the bowl, and I just kind of squatted over it for a second. And I remember like try to cough, and I coughed a little and like just kind of gently tugged on the cord just a tiny bit, and it came out. And the cord was like already white. And, for 38 weeks, the first day, she had like no vernix on her, which I was kind of like, that's kind of crazy.
So I'm really curious, when you say 38 weeks, did you, because this is obviously a wild pregnancy, so you're the one that calculated that. So what I'm curious is, do you calculate from the day that you believe you conceived, or do you count from the last day or from the first day of your last menstrual period?
First day of the last period.
Okay, so you did that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, because
Yeah.
otherwise, obviously, it would, because you add those 2 weeks when you're not pregnant with this Neagle's rule, which is ridiculous, but that's how it's done. So obviously, you count those 2 weeks that you're actually not pregnant. So
Yeah.
yeah, right. So yeah, because otherwise it would have been 40 weeks, wouldn't it, if you hadn't
Yeah.
done that. I was just curious. And
Yeah.
another thing that I just wanted to say was that it sounds like you just labor silently. Like you were probably fully at the time when you felt the drop of the head. It probably was that you were fully, and then the head dropped down into your vagina, and then you got this urge. Like that's what happens when your vagina. That's what happens when your baby's head drop really low. You get this involuntary urge to push. And it sounds exactly like that's what happened for you. Silent laborer, and then you just birth baby.
It was awesome. It was awesome. And honestly, I'm so glad it was short like that, because I think if it were longer, like obviously if it's longer, you have more time to sabotage, right? Mentally and potentially like physically with the interventions. But what an experience. It was incredible. And I actually, in one of those Facebook groups, I found a woman who's a nurse practitioner. She owns her own practice, but she herself has unassisted births, and she's very open to women, to like caring for them. So I found her, and I ended up having a 2-day after appointment with her to check myself and to check Ruby. But it was a girl, surprise. And so I was like, I felt so happy and just like grateful that I found this woman. And I truly, like, it was just to like help with the paperwork. So the birth certificate and the social security number and everything in the States, it's all done through the hospital. And so when you don't do it like that, or the midwife, it's very difficult to figure out how to do that yourself. And so this woman walked me through step by step what I needed to do. She was a saint, and I'm just so grateful for her, because that was probably the one thing that I was really stressing about, was just like that part of it.
All the paperwork and the systems and the institutions and I hear you.
Proving the birth. But yeah, so we didn't weigh her that night. We honestly just like got in bed, and she nursed for 3 hours, and then we slept, and it was the best. The next day we weighed her, and she was 6 pounds. And then by her 2-week appointment, she was already like 7 pounds. I don't know that she ever dropped. So yeah, and now she's like so chunky and lovely.
Yeah.
She's 2 months now. And yeah, it was just the most incredible experience, but also the most kind of, I wasn't terrified by any means, but it's just the has the highest stakes, like doing it by yourself, the potential of the risk. It's just very risky, talking to my family, my friends about it. Everybody had doubts and just like fears. And of course, things happen, and it's risky. So
well,
I think
ultimately it's not risky. There is a risk, but there's risk with life, right?
yes.
And if you are healthy and you're carrying a healthy baby, then the risk is very low. The chance of everything going right is like 99%, right? It's very low risk when you're having an undisturbed home birth.
Yeah.
And when you uphold physiology, whether you choose to have a midwife there or some sort of birth support or not, like if everyone knows how to uphold physiology, the risk of something happening is very small, and the chance of everything going fine is very high. Yeah, there's risk, absolutely. And that could have happened, and it can happen, and it does happen. So I think it's also like, because some people who choose to have unassisted births do so maybe from more of a naive place, where they actually go like, no, nature is wise, and as long as I do it like and physiology, no, like there is definitely risk. Like there's birth is not inherently risk-free, but nothing in life is. Like going out driving your car is not going to be risk-free, even though you're wearing a seatbelt or whatever, you know what I mean? So that's just, I think as long as you're weighing your pros and cons and going like, but this is what feels safest for me, then that's safest for you. Yeah. And you
Yeah. And that's truly what it was. It was like nothing in my body during the whole pregnancy or the birth ever wanted to do something different, and not once in the birth even did my mind go anywhere fearful or like I need help. It was purely just like me, and it was wonderful. But I think if there was a moment of um like there was one person, for instance, in that Facebook group that was like, how do you know if something's wrong? And it's like, you will know if something's wrong, and then you will go to the hospital, or you will know like something has happened, maybe your baby has passed or something. You will know, you will like feel it, or you will like, you know, you'll take action. But it's like, I don't want to go um, preemptively, just in case. I didn't want to give my power to anybody else. I didn't want anybody else to have a say or like tell me what to do. I wanted my body to just do it, and I wanted to experience that. And it was, I obviously very, very lucky and very grateful for the experience, but it was like the best experience of my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And what a powerful, quick second birth.
I thought it would be so, and I'm so glad it was.
Yeah. And no one probably would have made it. No
That's what I
midwife.
said to my
Yeah.
husband. I was like, no midwife or doula or photographer would have made it.
Yeah. And yeah, you know what? The clients that I work with, both in person and online, like I always say that my intention, like full focus, is for you to feel so empowered that you can do this all by yourself. Like you don't
Yeah.
I want you to plan for a free birth in a sense, because
Yeah.
that's how you should, like, it could happen also,
Prepare.
maybe midwife or
Mhm.
I or whoever you're gonna have that can't make it because it goes so quick or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
make yourself like just explore everything that makes you feel fully like I can do this on my own. And then that doesn't mean you should or you want to. You might still want to have a wise woman there. Everyone's going to be different what they need. Like you will know, but you should plan, I think, and prepare as if you were going to do it all on your own. Because then you
Yeah.
already know that you are fully prepared to own your birth.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was speaking to my husband about the midwife, he wanted the midwife there. I was like, it just feels weird that if I were to hire a midwife, I would say, I want you in a separate room,
Mm.
quiet, not doing anything. It's like, why would I hire, that feels funny. But yeah, no, that is a really good point to prepare like you're going to birth by yourself, because you never know what's going to happen.
You never know. And that's the thing. I mean, truly, if you employ a midwife, that is an independent midwife that trusts labor and birth and the physiology of, the innate design of woman and baby, then a lot of them do sit in the kitchen. If the
Mhm.
midwife, it's like an insurance policy, really. You just put her in the kitchen and she's there in case of, right? Like
Yeah.
truly, right? But then we're all different. Some women does want and need potentially someone that's very hands-on or more there, and some want to hear their baby's heartbeat throughout labor. It reassures them and makes them trust deeper. So everyone's
Mhm.
different. There's no right and wrong. I do think that preparation should be at the level of you actually
Yeah.
doing it on your own, because then I think especially for us modern women who want to have control and,
Mhm.
it helps
Mhm.
to have that level of knowledge of going like, I really know what I'm going to experience, in a sense of like understanding the physiology like you did with your short training that
Yeah.
you had. And yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It was awesome.
Now, if you had a first time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her first baby and she really wants to have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdoms would you give to her?
I definitely would tell her to listen to as many birth stories as possible just to start. I think that's the best place to start. It's not as overwhelming, and it's just, like stories medicine. It's so wonderful. And it's interesting like how many tidbits from each different story pop into your head, as you go along your pregnancy or your experiences, and listening to all different kinds of births was helpful for me. So I think just kind of opening your mind to like anything that can happen can kind of help you shape your journey of like how you want yours to go. You can make decisions along the way kind of based on that. I would definitely advise you, if you would like to breastfeed, to research and read and ask questions before your birth.
Yes.
Because it's very stressful in the moment to try to like gather all the information while doing that.
Yeah.
I think if you really want to make it happen, you have to like make a decision and like really support yourself and research and like know everything that you can about that, because it can be easy to give up on. And if you really want it to work, you have to really be prepared for it.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's just like birth that we don't see newborn babies being breastfed on a daily basis. Like, it's just not something, just like birth, that we really are exposed to in our modern society. And so I agree with that. I wish more women would, not just breastfeeding, but just like how to have a nourishing postpartum, you know, baby care, these things that can just make you feel more secure as you step into that instantaneously at birth. Like, you go from having birth, that experience that maybe you've planned a lot for, and then you become a mother, and then you have this responsible for this baby 24/7. And for a lot of people, the first time around, I feel really overwhelming. So I do agree. I wish more women would take that advice.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my only other thing is just open your mind to like what birth can be. It doesn't have to always look like that first, just like thought that you have about it. Like, it can be much bigger than that. And to open your mind to like the possibilities. It doesn't have to look like your friend's birth or your aunt's birth that you saw. You know, there's so many different ways it can look. And those birth stories will really help with that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your birth wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as The Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.